So like I said, I'm really glad you're here, even though it is a really busy day. I'm going to make, Sarah, can I make you a co-host so you can keep an eye out for um, incoming people, approving them to get in? I'd rather do that than to have a passcode, because then people are like, what's the passcode? So I don't know, there's just no real good way to do it. And they make you choose one these days. You can't just have a normal meeting anymore. Okay, so this book, we're constantly searching for books that are good for everyone, and specific to network marketing. So it's like, and he talks about it in the book, about how you have to have the skill in place, right? And so having specific network marketing skill books, I feel like there aren't that many out there, or maybe I just don't know about them, to know how to do this well, including social media. So there's some great oldies but goodies, but they don't incorporate social media, or, you know, that landscape is just so different than how they used to do it back in the day, right? Like with tons of phone calls and in-person meetings. Not that those things don't still work, they do, but so many of us build our business using social media. And this isn't like a specific strategy book, like I really wish someone would write for me, but it is a great basics book. And I reread it and I'm like, that's such a good reminder. And so even if you've been doing this for a million years, I think these are really great reminders. And it's also really good for people who have just started. So do you all have your book? Have you read? I know it's been, it takes a while to get in because it is coming from the UK. And so if you haven't read yet, that's okay. The good thing is it's a short book. So if it comes in later, he's a pretty easy read too, because he I feel like writes like he talks, and so it makes it easier to read. But we're going to dive into chapters 1 through 4 tonight, and it feels like a lot, but it's really not when you break it down. And so I'm going to jump in, but I really don't want to be the one to talk the whole time. So I would love to hear what your thoughts were, what your favorite takeaways were. Like if I say something, you're like, oh, I had a thought about that, please just interrupt me. Don't like feel like it's a thing. We've got a small enough group tonight that won't be disruptive at all. And let's just talk through what we learned, what was a highlight for us. I took notes here, and I actually have underlined stuff from the last time I read it too. And it is interesting how when I read it the first time a few years ago, I have different things that were interesting to me now than they were then. I don't know, maybe times have just changed. Okay, so chapter 1, it's like basically his introduction to network marketing and how he saw that modeled throughout his life. Like his parents, he remembered thinking, if they can do it, so can I. And I had people like that in my path when I first started. It's like, if they can do it, I can do it. And then like you go to convention or you go to leaders retreat and you're around all different personalities, and you're like, if they can do it, I for sure can do this, right? It's like not in a judgmental way necessarily, but just like the spectrum is so wide, that's why we say get to events. If you haven't been to an event, go to one, because it really is eye-opening just how many personalities show up there. That's one of my favorite parts. So he said that his parents went through rejection, they went through failure, they went through speaking, and that intimidated him. Those were all his top like fears, which I'm sure some of you guys can relate to. I know I certainly could in the beginning. Other than speaking, I've never really been afraid of speaking, but always afraid of failure, and for sure afraid of rejection and what people think about me. But that's skills that we hone along the way. So 3 of his largest fears. And then I loved when his dad said, are there more people on the planet that you do know or that you do not know? That's such a good reminder, because I think we do get in these pits of thinking, well, I don't know anybody else, or nobody, or if you're just starting, like nobody wants to do this with me, and you're thinking the top 3 people from your friend group, from your family, from your work, or whatever, right? But that's such a small amount of people in the grand scheme of things. But it's really easy to get caught in that trap, that head trash. But we do know so many more people. And I think that's why I have really enjoyed jumping into Instagram, is because I do feel like I'm talking to strangers. At least that's my goal, or I try to keep that in the back of my head when I'm making posts. I make less family type posts there. And I try to talk more to the millions of people I don't know in the world than to the few people I do know. And that shift has helped me think of this business as so much broader, and there's so many more people than I've allowed myself to think, if that makes sense. So I loved that quote. His dad, I thought it was interesting, his dad discouraged him from using Facebook because success leaves clues, and nobody's done this on social media yet. It's like, okay, where are we at right now where we're being we're discouraging ourselves because we're like, nobody does, whatever, like that's not going to work because nobody's done that. Like, what is that right now? Because the times are always changing. So that has me thinking, like, where are the opportunities that I'm not taking advantage of just because it's never been done before? Okay, so contact, connect, and add value to strangers. That was definitely Instagram for me. And then what'd you guys think about the let's rob a bank? His dad saying, let's rob a bank. So people are like banks. They are well secured and they need careful planning to break into them. And the first thing is that you need to know where the vault is, right? You need a plan. It's truly not just a numbers game in network marketing. And I know, and I love that he talks about how that list is important, how making your list of 100 and having people in mind, that's really important to have, to work through, but that is not your end. Like, that is just your beginning. And so it's not just like blow up 100 people and then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, it's just not a numbers game. You have to know and build trust with people. It reminds me of Brene Brown's marble jar example. I use this all the time, so if you've heard me say it, I apologize. But she talks about teachers having marble jars in classrooms, and when the kids do good things, they get marbles put in the jar, and then marbles are taken out if they don't do right in class, right? But as they build that marble jar up, they have a reward at the top for filling up the marble jar. And Brene Brown, it was like, I think it was her daughter who used that example for trust. Like, we are filling up a marble jar with people with trust and credibility and stickability, right? And showing that we are committed by adding those jars, those marbles to the jar to build trust. And to me, that's how we rob the bank, right? Like, how we get past our armor that we truly have around ourselves. Like, I don't think anybody is immune to that. Like, we all wall up because we are bombarded with a million different ads all day long. We have people coming at us wanting things, their own desires that aren't necessarily bad. We have to like filter through all of that. And so we wall up, and some of us wall up even more because we've been hurt by a network marketer who scammed us, right? I will never forget the time I had a mentor. I was I was doing an internship, and I had a mentor, I thought, there was a therapy facility, Children's First, or wait, Families Inc. That's what it's called. And I was just working there in the office, and one of the guys was a therapist I looked up to. I still think he's probably an amazing guy. But we went out to lunch one day, and then like it was fine, it was good, we're chatting, talking about therapy, all this stuff, and then at the end he pitches me his network marketing business. And it was so out of left field. It was so cringy. And I just remember thinking, yuck, like my marble jar was not full enough for this. Like I had not given him any indication that I was interested in that. And another thing that my therapist told me that really stuck with me is help not asked for is often perceived as control. Ugh. So if we just like go to people, and I think too, and maybe it's especially during this motherhood time of my life, but like I post something about something I'm doing with my kid. Most recently, no, I'm not even gonna give the example because you guys will go back and look. But I post something about what I'm doing. I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask for advice. I didn't ask for you to tell me how great your experience was. I didn't ask for any of that, but then I get bombarded with it. Okay. And so I'm like, okay, is that how people feel when I bombard them with this will work for you? And I know this is going to be the best thing for you. And, you have to try this. And they're like, I didn't ask you. Like, are you trying to control me? It can start to feel like we're controlling. And I think that's why we have problems sometimes with our closest people. So if you jumped into this and your closest people ran with you, you are blessed, because it's not always like that. And it's, especially for me, it was long, hard work to get some of my family members to even try it. And it really was when I stepped back and stopped pushing that they were more open to seeing what I was up to. And it took building the marble jar of trust and stories and seeing that I stuck around for things to really work better, to have more trust. So we think, but you already trust me, you know me, you love me, you should just do this with me. That's just not always how it works. And I see that a lot, that people jump in and they're like, nobody wants to do this with me. Nobody, as in the 3 people who are closest to us in our major areas. And it's discouraging. It's crazy discouraging, but it took me a long time to realize that it was so much more to do with them and their timing than it was about me. Because I looked at it like, well, it's just because I'm not doing something right, or it's because they don't really trust me, or it's because, oh, there she is. Okay. Or yeah, it's they don't trust me, or they don't respect me, or I created all these stories in my head, right? And so I think that's part of our biggest job is, as leaders, that we're leading people in how to wade through that. So if you are a leader, that's your job. And if you're brand new, listen to me. I'm trying to tell you here. I'm trying to give you some advice you didn't ask. But I guess you're here, so you kind of asked for some advice. So there it is. I ask more questions than you give answers, I guess. Okay, so what did you guys take away? Were there any big points from chapter 1 that you thought stuck out to you that I didn't mention? Anybody? No. Okay, we'll move on to chapter 2 then. So chapter 2, I dare you to give it a go. And so, all right, so go back to when you just joined. How much, this is my question to you, when you just joined, how much do you now know that you didn't know when you joined? Think about it. And even if you just joined, I don't think anybody on this call just joined, but maybe somebody listening to the recording just joined. Even if you know nothing yet, you signed up, so you know how to sign up. Like that in itself is a learning. So you already have the skill to know how to help somebody else sign up because you went through the process of signing up. So that's the takeaway for me is, if you've been doing this a long time, it's like, give yourself some credit. You may be sitting there feeling like, I don't know enough. I still am learning every single day. And I think when you stop learning is when you stop growing. But I am learning every single day. And I remember in the beginning feeling super overwhelmed by what all I didn't know. But I just got curious and started learning a little bit at a time, and then started to feel more comfortable. But I do think it's important for us to stop and look back at how much we do know and how much we have gained on this journey. So your initial list, he says, that you make is how you learn. You learn how through talking to those people. So long-term money isn't necessarily in your original list. Most people struggle with their initial list. Skills, you in those times, in those first people you talk to, skills you learned how to face rejection, objections, and questions like, is it a pyramid scheme? So much skepticism. That is the work of your initial list, of the first people that you reach out to. And that's why I tell people, it's like you learn through every new conversation you have. And so you have to build up that time. Like, I went to school for 5 years to become a social worker. That's 5 years of knowledge that I built up to be prepared for my first conversation. And when we start Plexus, we don't have 5 years of studying first. We're taking that studying time from the moment we begin our journey. And so I think in formal learning, we're like, oh, I'm not prepared enough, but that's not how it works. We learn as we go. And that's why we have mentors, right? That's why we have people we go to and we're like, how do you handle this objection? Somebody just told me this thing. I don't know what to do with that. And I'm sure we all have stories on how we handled those, and maybe we could talk about them if we have time. But most people struggle through their initial list, and even some of us look back and cringe at our first messages to people. Have you guys ever gone back and apologized? It's like, yikes, I sent you this, I'm embarrassed. Or it's like, oh, that's not how I would have handled that had I known more, or whatever. Sometimes those conversations can be really real and raw and turn into something good, even if it's just like repairing and adding marbles to the jar, right? Even if they don't order, it's just like, oh, I've learned some things since then. Those can be humbling and good conversations. Okay, so you're facing those initial rejections, building your belief in yourself, in your business, and in your products. That is the key when you're just starting this business. Building belief in yourself, the business, and the products. And then I remember being told to find 3 testimonies that make you cry. 3 testimonies that make you cry, because what the crying part's not that important, but it's 3 testimonies that touch you so deeply that you know they are so real that no amount of skepticism from anybody is going to be able to take that away from you. Oh, well, I hear it's all placebo. Well, tell that to my friend Gail, who can pick up her babies now. Like, you can't take that away from Gail. It worked. Placebo or not, it's not placebo, but placebo or not, these products changed her life, period. You can't, no amount of like skeptical network marketing person bashing on any post is going to take that away from me. And that is confidence that you can't buy, right? Like, you've just got to find that belief in yourself, the business, the products, and have those stories in your back pocket for when those lies come in, like, well, maybe they're right, or well, maybe it's really not as great as I think it is, or whatever. No, it really is as great as you think it is, especially for these 3 people. And what if this next person you talk to is one of the next 3 that make you cry? You just don't know. So those are things I tell people: build belief in yourself, the business, the products, and find 3 testimonies that make you cry. And you are looking for people who are looking. Help not asked for is often seen as control. And then the question I always ask myself is, would I say this to their face? Like, would I, if I ran into them at the grocery store, would I say this to their face if I'm messaging them? Like, how would that conversation go? Do I need to make it more personal? Do I need to make it more direct? Am I using too many words? Am I vomiting plexus on them? You know, am I answering questions they didn't ask for, right? Because often we don't know what they're most interested in learning about. Maybe they're interested in the product side of things, and maybe others are interested in the business side of things, or the ins and outs of that, or maybe they just want to know if it's going to work for them. That's the majority of people. They don't want the details. They just need to be told, hey, try this. This is going to work for you. But you have to have that conversation with them in order to really know who they are. So network marketing is not selling, it's sharing, kind of. But we are still selling. We're still business people. Let's see, prospecting your target market is your list, your close people. Marketing your target market is people we relate to. I like this quote: you can't choose your initial list, but you can choose your target market. I liked that for thinking about how we post on social media. Who are we looking for specifically? And I don't have like an avatar of a person I'm specifically looking for, but I have values that I'm looking for in those people, and that's how I make my posts. And let me see if I saved this post actually, because I really liked it. Sorry, this is a sidebar, but it was like, the next time you post, before you share your next post, make sure to answer these questions. Who is this for? What is the purpose of this post? Why is this important? Where should people go next? How does this benefit my audience? And then the question is, when is my audience active? When are they online the most? So I loved those questions. Who is it for? What's the purpose of the post? Why is this important? Where should people go next? How does this benefit my audience? And when is my audience the most active? Asking ourselves those specific questions. And I feel like specifically on Instagram, those are the questions I'm asking myself. Like, does this fit what I've been talking about? Or am I just throwing up something that my close friends and family are going to like? Because we want to be working toward that target market, not just our initial list. And so I'm not so great at, like, I haven't niched down enough to be talking to just my target market. I still add in personal stuff. I haven't been able to let that go yet. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I'm learning along the way, but you can't choose your initial list, but you can choose your target market, who you're talking to, and intentionally why. I thought the popcorn in a movie story was a good way to look at what we do, pages 23 through 24. So you've got traffic, you've got the cinema, which is our story. And then if it's good, if it's a good movie, you stick around and engage. If you enjoy it, then you'll be there and you'll eventually offer something to them that they want, like popcorn. And when it's offered, they will eventually get hungry and take it. So the goal is to create traffic to our story and then have an offer when they're ready and the time is right. Not too soon or too often, but just to have it there and ready for when they're ready. That's why I think talking about our products in stories is a really good way to do that. Because then it's there when they're ready. Stories, not everybody engages with your stories every day on Instagram. They've got to be close to you. They've got to have trusted you to be like, oh, I want to know more about what this person is doing. Hey, they want to know more. Oh, you want popcorn? Click the button, see the options of the products, see the things that we're offering, the things that we're doing, more about our personality to add more marbles to the jar. And those posts draw people in with value that we add. And we talk about that more later. But we are there when they're ready. And there's that popcorn story, but you guys have heard the coffee story, right? Like you're in the cafe and somebody comes around and offers you coffee and you don't want it. What if the waitress was like, how dare you? Why aren't you taking my coffee? We would be like, okay, lady, you're a little obsessed with your coffee, right? I'm sure that's how some people have felt when we get defensive, when they don't want what we have to offer right then. But the waitress just keeps going around and keeps offering, hey, you need a warm up. Are you ready now? And eventually we are, or we just don't like coffee. And some people just don't like coffee and will never like coffee. And we just got to be over that, right? So I thought that was kind of similar, different, but it made me think of that. Okay, so I'm blabbering a lot. I really don't want this to just be me talking to you guys. So tell me some of your thoughts from chapter 2. What did you take away? What did I miss? What can you expound on?
I really liked on page 20, he's talking about the difference between prospecting and marketing. And I don't think he makes it super clear yet. I don't know if this is like an intro and he's going to explain some of his points later, but he touches on, he says, prospecting is being the hunter, marketing is being the hunted. And I relate that to Genevieve. Genevieve. Thank you. Every time I'm like, wait, what? How do I say that name?
Yeah, it's French.
Yeah, I have been in her diamond sprint group, and she's been talking to us a lot about fishing. Like we are fishing, we're not hunting, we're just casting a bait out into the water and finding out who's hungry. Like we're just putting ourselves out there and saying, okay, here's our bait, and the hungry fish is going to find us. And everybody else can just keep swimming until they're hungry, because eventually they'll want the food too. But right now I'm just looking for those that are actually hungry and ready to bite. And so, you know, I think it's funny because, you know, when it's like someone is just beginning and you're like, all right, you need one more person. Have you asked your mom? Like, where's your mama? Where's the person that you know is going to just join you? Because they're your mama. They're gonna, like, you're gonna say, listen, mom, I have got to make this goal. I really believe in these products. Would you just try this with me? Like, that's something you can do with your mama. You know, like there's a special case for that. You filled up the marble jar. Her marble jar is exploding with marbles all the time. You can ask for a sale, but you know, with everybody else, you don't have enough marbles in the world to do that. So, yeah, I don't know. I loved that. I love that that whole aspect of the marketing versus prospecting.
Or if you're like me, you basically just steal your mom's credit card and you're like, no, you're doing this because she didn't want to do it. I was like, no, really, you're doing this. I'm never gonna let it live that down.
My person like paid for mine, like just straight up said, give me your social security number. And this is back in the day, well before compliance. And they just like entered their own credit card info and just sent me the stuff.
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, but you gotta have enough marbles in the jar, right? Yeah, I do like the fishing metaphor more than the hunting. But it's interesting that you said that, because I don't think that is what I also felt like that section needed more meat, like more explanation. Prospecting, because I thought of the same thing. Like, we're not hunters, we're not going out and just like, well, I guess we kind of I don't know. Anyway,
we're just finding out who's hungry. That's all we're doing. We're fishing. We're not attacking like a lion, you know.
We're not pouncing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yes. And so I mean, I guess like marketing is being the hunted.
Yeah, because we're just saying, listen, this is what I offer. Like, all right, everybody, just like with CoverGirl, I'm just putting it out there. I'm telling you what I have, and then you go buy it because you want it.
We're looking for the people who are looking for what we have.
Our product, what we offer. Exactly.
Yeah. Who else? What you got from chapter 2? Mosquito in here.
How about that sentence in there that says, prospecting is like farting. If you have to force it, it's probably crap.
Do you follow Fraser on social media?
No, I had never heard of him until this book.
He's a riot. He is a riot. And it's like coupled with this UK London accent, which makes it more endearing, even though he's a total goofball. But I don't know, there's something about the accent, but he's really fun. I actually saw him and was introduced to him at Bob Heilig's retreat several years ago. He spoke there and I'm like, this guy's fun. I can get behind it. So yeah, if we're forcing it, I didn't highlight that well. I think I did underline it, but I'm like, maybe I'll just skip that one.
You had to at least ha it, right?
I did. I put ha next to it. But it's true. It's true. If we're forcing it, it's probably craft. You are looking for people who are looking. What else you guys got? No? Yes.
Can you tell us where you mentioned a whole bunch of questions, like who is this for? What's the purpose? Where'd you get that from? And can you type that in the chat?
Yeah, it's an Instagram post. Lotus.mediaco. Just a random post that I saved from her. Let me put it in the chat really quick. What else do you guys have to say about chapter 2? Oh man, I forget I have to hit enter, so sorry.
If you do alt enter, you can keep them all together.
Okay, so I just tried control and the control isn't it. So alt is the answer. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have lots of thoughts on chapters 3 and chapter 4, but
Yeah,
I don't
they're
have much on
definitely
chapter 1 and chapter 2.
they're definitely more meaty for sure. Control or alt enter doesn't work. Shift. Shift. It's shift. Where?
Do you have a Mac?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I have one. I earned one. I don't use it. I just. How does this benefit my audience? And when is my audience? There we go. There was another good one. It was in the form of a reel that I thought that I saved, but I guess I did not. Yeah, anyway, maybe I'll find it later. Okay, so chapter 3, here we go with thoughts for chapter 3. So he opens up talking about mind flow instead of mindset, which I kind of like because it's a process of going through it every day, right? Mind flow is like a river, it's constantly flowing. So this business, I love this business is not a job. With time, it can earn you life-changing money. This is not trading time for a set amount of money like a job. You track steps over time, and that will compound if you are learning. You can't just put the time in and expect things to just magically happen for you. You have to be learning along the way. I love that, tracking your steps instead of your time. Because I think that's why I kind of got lost in, okay, well, I got to silver. Like, okay, what do I need to get to the next thing? And then it's like, I built skills along the way to get to that next rank. And I built skills along the way to get to that next rank. And then I got kind of stuck at Senior Ruby because I needed some more skills. I got stuck there for a hot second. And then I got stuck at Emerald, whatever. I didn't get stuck, but I was in a process of learning throughout that time. And then I spent time doing MSAF, right, back and forth for that for a while until I finally was able to reach Diamond. And I think those times where I had those gaps would have been compressed had I been intentionally learning and showing up for myself and learning about the business and myself and the products. If I had consistently done that, I think it would have happened quicker. I have no evidence for that. I don't know. But I do believe that those things need to be there. And so much of that is head stuff, that mind flow, that mindset of what's holding us back, and really self-examining who is holding who back. And it's usually ourselves. It's usually something that's going on between our ears. That we're often not even consciously aware of. So we have to dig for it. We have to dig for why we're being held back or why we are holding ourselves back. Okay, so in the beginning, you do a lot for a little, and in the end, you do a little for a lot. And that is the darn truth. The skills just change, they shift. When you get to higher ranks, it's different skills you have to learn and different mindset stuff you have to go through, but it's still a learning, but you're doing less work than when you were at the beginning. But the thing is if you're doing it in line with your values, it doesn't really feel like work. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but like when I first started, I would come home from work and sit on my laptop and I would learn a little something and I'd chat a little bit with somebody and I'd like make a little post, and I just did that. That's what I did with my time. And it didn't feel like I was working. It just was like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it other than it was, I guess, just in line with what I enjoyed. And that curiosity and excitement took me further and further, and those skills took me further and further. Does anybody relate to that? Like, I wasn't having to grind it out during my most active times. Sometimes I've had to grind it out though. Sometimes you just have to show up and do it, but I'm trying to think. Anyway, okay, that was a complete sidebar. Okay, so activities times skills equals results. Activities times skills equals results. Work a lot without skills equals little results. Only focus on skill and no activity equals little results. And I have been on both sides of those things. Move forward with one foot as personal development and one as activity. To have them go together, you move further. Move just one. Either move one foot in personal development, or you're moving just your activity foot and you're going to spin around in circles. And I think we've probably all been there too. I tend more toward the personal development side of things. Like I would rather just read about some good old therapy books all day long and not show up for my life-changing activities. I would love to do that, but I don't get very far. So we have to be moving both of those things at the same time. Oh, I liked this too. Commit not for a certain time, but to the journey. Detach from the outcome and get lost in the journey. It does work. Get lost in the journey. I think maybe that's what I was trying to say when I said I would just come home and do the things. Like I was lost in the journey. I was just doing it. I wasn't thinking I've got to get this before this time. And actually, I distinctly remember when that shift happened in my head, and it happened when I started comparing myself to other people. in their journeys. I'm like, oh, well, they did it in this amount of time. I got to do it in this amount of time. And then it started, then it became like a grinding it out, or like a shame thing that I could talk a lot about my shame journey and getting back out of that. That's a whole different story. But committing for not for a certain time, but for the journey. And when he talks about people just say, okay, I'm going to give this a year. He's like, you don't go into a marriage like, all right, I'm going to give this a year and see how it goes. You to like commit to it and you work on it along the way. You don't just like give up after a year. But we see that happen with a lot of people. Okay, I'm going to give this 30 days. And then that's all you got, 30 days. But then you got your priorities all mixed up. It's not about how many days or weeks or whatever. It's about committing to the process. It is a process, not a start finish. If you go in with a start finish mindset, you're going to be very disappointed. So that's what I tell people when they join. I'm like, listen, there's no set time limit on this. You really need to be able to give this a go. I want you to try this, but I don't want you to think it's just magic in 30 days. I'm going to be real with you. And I think people appreciate that when we are honest with them about what this business looks like or what the products look like. Okay. Average. Go.
Sorry, I was just thinking, whenever we think about something, doing it for like 30 days or like 75 hard. All right, y'all. That is freaking hard. It is not something that you can do long-term, lifetime thing. So when people are like, oh, I'm going to give it 30 days, it almost sounds like, oh, this is going to be so hard. I can only do it for 30 days. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're going into this business in that mindset, then man, that is not right at all. You're already going into it in a very unhealthy way that you're going to be burnt out in 30 days. You will be 100% burnt out. So how can we change that mindset from people thinking, okay, I'll give you, because I've had a lot of people say, I'll give you 6 months, see where I can go. I'm like, pressure's on. Hello. Like, goodness, that's a lot of pressure for them and for me. I don't want to do that. That's not fun. This is like long-term. Like they just clearly don't see the opportunity, like what this would look like for doing this long-term, lifetime.
Yeah. But I think it's hard because this business isn't like anything else. It's not like any other job. And so I think that's our job, is to vision cast for them in that 6-month time frame, to like talk about the future, like what could be, what the results could be with that commitment to just growing over time.
I know he mentioned too that like most people take a couple years to break even in a business. And I think like even just helping people recognize that. And I think it really depends on like where people are coming from, their background. Like I have a corporate background. And so I feel like I came into this like looking at it more like from this is going to take years, but if I can earn this in 10 years, like that's worth it. Right. But I think the way that network marketing has historically been pitched is like fast money. And I think some of that is on like, how are we representing it to people? What testimonies are we sharing with people? Yeah. Like, are we giving them a realistic view of like a sustainable business growth looks like this versus like, go hard for 6 months, but then, you're going to burn out, you're going to hate your life and you're going to quit anyway. Like I want people that can function in a sustainable way, long-term, can understand what it looks like to have healthy boundaries and take breaks as appropriate, but like be consistent,
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Average people quit after 6 weeks, and the average person gets their first win after 8 weeks. Oh man, like reading that, I'm like, I'm going to use that more often. I'm going to use that more often with people who come in and then fizzle out. I'm like, you just need a couple more weeks. Like, odds are, if you're working, you just need a few more weeks. Just need to give it a little bit more time. So I wrote, give social media as long as it takes to get results. There's no secret to success, but there are systems, he says. So we're looking to turn strangers into friends, friends into family. There are more people on this planet that we don't know than we do know. Keeping that in the back of our mind as we are in this journey of finding the right people. It is not confined to our small little towns, or even our counties, or even our states. Like, we're working on the worldwide thing, y'all. Like, we have access to these people all around the whole United States. If you're only focusing on the US, like, there are so many people. And I just look at it like this opportunity. I'm like, okay, now that I'm like trying to hone who I'm talking to, I'm like, all right, I want to talk to these kind of people. Like, I want to find people who have the similar values to me and enjoy the things I enjoy. And I want to create new friends. So I'm looking at social media like, I'm going to create new friends that have similar values. And then I'm like, I've met so many really cool people in my life, and I haven't met that many people. Like, there's really cool people out there that I need to get to know and become friends with and have bonds with. That, like, God's going to bring us together. Like, I'm looking for that next person. And so when I'm posting, if I keep that in the back, that excitement in the back of my mind, like, I'm about to meet somebody really cool, like really cool. It's going to be my new best friend. Then I think that changes the way, like, that changes the way I post and how I think about this, the future of my business. Okay, we're gonna run out of time. I'm sorry, I'm jabbering too much. Anything else real quick from chapter 3? We're gonna move on to chapter 4.
I really liked you said the main variable in network marketing is you. I was like, that is so true.
It is so true.
For us to remember, but also to be sharing with other people. And then I know you touched on the commit to the journey, and that's something I am part of Kristen Boss's Academy, if any of you follow her at all. But something that I noted, like, she talks a lot about the journey, and like the times that I'm struggling the most are when I'm like getting super goal oriented to the point that I'm losing like that contentment and like taking the time to just like enjoy and remember that this is a journey. Everyone looks different. And so, yeah, I just appreciated like that reminder and how it all just kind of ties into like mindset, mind flow, whatever, of just where our minds are impact us as the variable and how we show up and what we bring to the table for others.
Yeah. I am a much better poster in person in general when I am posting in line with my values instead of in line with the goal that I have in mind in front of me. Or when I make sure my goals are what I value, like are what I'm really working toward, instead of like the hustle of getting to the next thing. That tends to produce less genuine stuff from me and more like rushed content, I guess. Okay, chapter 4. So the abilities, he goes through ability 1, increase visibility. Year 2 is raise power of likability, developing your influence ability, and then growing your profitability. And we're turning likes into leads, he says. So number 1, increase your visibility. Visibility is not the same as credibility. So algorithms are very complicated, but he says posting is simple. And he says the FEP method. So friends list, engagement, and posts. The number of friends doesn't matter as much as the percentage. So our goal is to genuinely connect with 100% of our friends list. That kind of, I'm like, nope, it doesn't really work like that anymore. Not gonna happen. Especially like when you've got a lot of Plexus friends involved in all of that. But that does, I feel like, make you more intentional with like at finding the right people. You're looking for the people who are looking. And so being intentional about who those people are. So genuinely, the goal is to genuinely connect with the people that are on our friends list. And then that percentage gets, the higher the percentage, the better. So react, comment, message. I feel like that's pretty basic. Like we know that, but do we? Like, are we trying to genuinely connect with people, strangers, new people? Are we trying to build relationships and to go deeper with people instead of just like ha 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 or heart emoji? Like, are we asking a question back in the comments? Or like, are we going to DMs to ask them how their day was? Like, am I allowing myself to be vulnerable enough? I think that's a big thing for us. Like, am I being vulnerable enough to get to know people on a deeper level so that they know me, like me, trust me, to be their person? Yeah, so I wonder, I am not great about going to specific people. I have groups of saved people, like people who follow me, who I don't know, or who I want to get to know. And then I have a my people section. I'm like, okay, these people I get, like, you've got common interests. And when I'm doing my work well, I'm interacting with them more. I go to their post. I'm intentionally finding something I find interesting or letting them know what value they added to me that day through that post, through their whatever. And I think that's our goal, is to genuinely connect and have conversations like we would if we ran into them at the grocery store, right? Pretending like there isn't this social media computer barrier, but like getting to know them and being intentional in that way matters. And then I wrote, like, it's possibly worth removing some people that you have no desire to connect with. Like, they're just kind of fluffy and sort of in the way, and they're not ever going to buy from you. You're not interested in really seeing what they see, and just kind of removing them. Like, here's your permission to do that if that's hard for you. I'm also giving myself permission to do it because that's hard for me. But followers, like, if somebody follows me and I know it's a scam account, I block them and move on. Like, I don't want them following me. Sure, that vanity number looks nice, but I don't care. They're not going to engage with my stuff. They're not going to buy plexus from me. Gone. Bye. See ya. You're a bot. I don't want you in my life. So getting rid of those kind of people. Okay. React, comment, message. Don't be a stalker. Engage. Start small. That's what I wrote. Post equal visibility, but I say quality over quantity. And then I said his 3-hour rule is outdated, like posting every 3 hours. That's too much. That's too much. When we first started Plexus, that was what we did. We posted a whole lot. But I think that 3-hour rule is outdated, of waiting 3 hours to post again. And I say post for consistency. So whatever is sustainable for you is better than post a lot and then quit. So find your rhythm of adding value consistently over time is so much better than like showing up and then leaving. And then 2, raising your power of likability. The more likes, the more people want to engage. You want it to be like a thriving restaurant or a bar. That takes time. So be consistent, create conversation, give value. Consistency equals results. Consistency trumps intensity every time. I love that. Like, showing up intentionally every single day makes the difference. And I put pressure on myself. I'm like, well, I'm not doing stories today, or I haven't posted enough in my stories about the products, or I haven't made a post or a reel or whatever. And I'm like, chill, Sunny, just do what you can do. Doing something is so much better than getting overwhelmed and doing nothing. And so I'm just trying to be as consistent as I possibly can. And then the key is not beating myself up on the days when I can't. You know, like, because then when we beat ourselves up on those days off, we're less likely to show up for the next day because we're like, oh, I'm no good. Like, oh, I'm not up to my par or whatever. But be consistent in what you're doing, even if it's smaller than what you think it should be. Hear me. Okay, so show up in some way daily. Some days you're going to do all the things and it's going to feel amazing, and other days you're going to just show up and you're going to do a post, and that's going to be great. Okay, reply to comments with questions and add value. And the question is, like, what does that look like for you to add value to people? And I think it's going to be different for all of us. So, okay, so that's 1 and 2. What are your thoughts from that? What do you got from visibility and likability?
I really liked where he said to ask questions in the comments. That honestly, it was like oh, that's a great idea. Like, I just don't think to do that. And it does make it feel a lot more social, and like I'm getting to know people as opposed to just like, your baby's cute. Like, it literally, that there, I commented and asked, or I don't know if I did ask a question, but like did like a longer comment than I would normally do to someone I don't know very well. I had reached out to her in 2020 via Messenger because she's a nurse, and I was like, oh, maybe she'd be interested, like the year I started, you know. She never responded, and last week she responded to me a Messenger and was like, oh my gosh, I never saw this, I would love to learn more. I haven't seen her in 6 years.
Nice.
And I was just like, okay, I'm sold.
Okay.
But just like and it made sense too from the perspective of like, it boosts posts too, and then more people see your stuff, you see more of other people's stuff when there's more conversation happening, and you're getting to know people, and that's what also builds trust and likability and all of that along the road. So I don't know, it was very simple, but it helped give me like a very clear action that didn't feel overwhelming.
Yes, that's so good. What else do you guys got? Okay, all right, on to 3 and 4. I'll try to go fast to respect your time. Okay, so developing your influenceability. So the ability to have an effect on the character development or behavior of someone or something. Influence can be built quickly in comparison to leadership. I thought that was powerful. So if you're like, I'm not a leader, I'm just a blank, 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 whatever, that doesn't matter, because leadership is different than influenceability. So you can be influential and not necessarily a leader. That should be some relief off of you, because we can influence people even if we're not realizing it. Well, and the truth is we're influencers regardless. We're influencers for whether people move forward, or we're influencers for not, right? Like we don't have a choice. We are influencing people, but I don't think that was necessarily his point. But okay, 1, we want to live our lives like they do. This is how we know if they're influential. We want to live our lives like they do. We respect their knowledge. Or 3, we admire their success in a similar field. So who, if they called you, would make everything stop? Nothing matters but that phone call. And so asking myself that question was kind of powerful. Like, who are those people in my life that I would drop everything to take their phone call, and why? Like, what do they do for me that would make me stop everything? And aside from like friends, close friends and family that I would drop everything for an emergency, thinking about who other people, like Brene Brown, if she called me, everything in my world would stop and I would pay attention. But why? Like, what are those characteristics that she has, and how can I model that for other people? So how can I show up in those small ways for other people? What can I do to make people not give me the deny button when I call them? Like, what does that look like? And that was a mind challenge for me to think through. Am I just posting fluff, or am I creating the need for people to want to hit the accept button. And that's a big feat right now because people don't talk on the phone anymore. We're just like, I don't want to talk, send a voicemail. But I had to think through that. What did they do or say to get that influence over you? And how can we be that person for somebody else? Are you a person people come to ask questions? I think that was interesting too. Like, it means a lot when people do come to me to ask a question. It doesn't happen super often, so it means I need to work on my influenceability. But I do like it when people do that. And so it's like, okay, maybe I need to add more value so people realize I can be the person to answer their questions. But if they do come to you to ask, that's influence. And it's created on social media by one, contact with someone 12 times for at least 20 minutes at a time. Whoa. And then also someone watches 7 hours of your videos. Someone engages with 32 pieces of your content. Okay. That feels overwhelming to me. That's like a lot. There's a lot of competition in the world of social media. But then I think about, it's like, that's going to take so much longer if you only post 1 time per month, right? Or like you post and then don't post for 3 weeks or whatever. Like, that consistency in showing up and adding value is what's going to make that seem less overwhelming. But contact with someone 12 times for at least 20 minutes at a time. And I think those comments and those questions you ask in the comments, those count, I think. And so starting to build relationship with people in the comments, in the DMs, in our stories, interacting with their polls, right, that other people post, is a way to get yourself into their world. And interacting with their stories is a way to get them to come to your page to interact with one of your posts or one of your videos. We've got to like pay to play, sort of. We've got to play with them instead of just wanting people to come to us. I've been guilty of that. It's like, I'm just going to put the value out there, but I'm not interacting with them enough. Yeah. So what do you guys think about that? Document your life is greater, but is good. It is not too dull. I always think like, nobody cares about my morning routine. Well, for one, I don't really have one. So maybe that's what I need to post. I don't really have a morning routine. But I think my life is too dull, but people want to know what our life is like and what we do. And anyway, so lifestyle is good, value is great, being authentic is best. Being yourself. Ability 4 is growing your profitability. So to truly grow your profit with influence, you have to get good at reaching out at the right time. Reach out to people who love your content, who comment, who share your content. They like something like, hey Bob, thanks for loving my last post. How are things? You're ending it in a question. And then people who reply, or people who comment, reply to their comments and then message them privately. And then people who share your stuff, he's like, those are hot. You know, those are people who obviously find what you're doing influential. And so thanks for sharing. That means a lot. Is everything good with you? Just starting the conversation. So get to the messages. That's where the magic happens. And I think up to date a little bit more is get into the stories, then to the DMs. That's where the conversations come before commissions. We're having conversations with people in our stories and in our DMs. Okay, so that's ability 3 and 4. What do you guys have from that part? What stuck with you? Those were just my notes. What do you guys have? I took so many notes from this next section we're going to cover. Like I have a lot from this next section. Anything? to wrap up that, I appreciate you guys being on here and taking time on a busy Mother's Day to be here. I challenge you to personally text invite somebody to remind them to get on the next call. To not feel like, oh no, I missed the first one, I can't get on the next one. That's not true. Please invite them personally to come, because I think that makes all the difference, because they're like, nobody is paying attention on if I come or not, and it does matter to us. So tell them to come, that you want to see them on. The next time is next Monday, same place, next Sunday, same place, 8 Central Time, and we are covering, why is that backward? Chapters 5 and 6, 46 to 67, May 15th, 8 p.m. Anything else before we go? Hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye. See you later.